This is the complete rise and fall of Rome. 1200 years of glory, betrayal, and blood, all in one video. It began nearly 3000 years ago as a tiny cluster of mud huts on the hills beside a river in Italy. It begins around 753 BC with a legend. Two baby brothers, Romulus and Remus, were abandoned and left to die by the river. According to the myth, a she-wolf found them and raised them as their own. Rome grew up on 7 hills beside the Tiber, perfectly placed for trade and for war. But the two brothers quarreled over the new city, and Romulus killed Remus. He named the city after himself, Rome. For its first 2.5 centuries, Rome was ruled by kings. 7 kings reigned in all, and the very last of them was a cruel tyrant. The Romans came to despise the whole idea of a single, all-powerful ruler. So, in 509 BC, the Romans rose up and overthrew their last king. They swore a solemn oath to never be ruled by a king again. In his place, they built something new and radical, a republic. Instead of a king, leaders called consuls were elected every single year. Two consuls always ruled together, so no single man could seize total control. Guiding them all was the Senate, a powerful assembly of Rome's elders. But Roman society was bitterly split between the rich patricians and the common plebeians. After decades of struggle, the ordinary people finally won real political rights. United at last, Rome began to expand across Italy. Its disciplined legions became the most feared fighting force in the world. City by city, Rome conquered the entire Italian peninsula, and then it collided with a rival every bit as powerful as itself. That rival was the mighty trading empire of Carthage across the sea in Africa. Rome and Carthage fought 3 brutal wars for control of the Mediterranean. These were among the bloodiest conflicts of the entire ancient world. Carthage's deadliest weapon was one brilliant general, Hannibal. In a legendary gamble, he marched an entire army over the Alps into Italy. He even dragged war elephants across the freezing mountain passes. At the Battle of Cannae, he slaughtered tens of thousands of Romans in a single day. For 15 years, Hannibal rampaged through Italy, and yet Rome refused to surrender. Rome rebuilt its shattered armies and carried the war to Carthage itself. A young Roman general named Scipio finally beat Hannibal at his own game. In the end, Carthage was defeated and burned completely to the ground. Rome was now the undisputed master of the Western world. But all this success brought a dangerous new enemy from within. The Republic had grown rich, greedy, and deeply divided against itself. Ambitious generals began fighting each other for personal power. The most brilliant and ruthless of them all was Julius Caesar. Together with 2 other powerful men, Caesar formed a secret pact to run Rome. Then he conquered all of Gaul, modern-day France, in a savage 8-year campaign. Perhaps 1 million people died in his brutal wars of conquest. He even sailed to the distant Egypt and allied with the famous queen Cleopatra. His endless victories made him a hero to the people and a deadly threat to the Senate. So the Senate ordered him to give up his army and come home alone. Instead, in 49 BC, Caesar led his loyal soldiers across the river Rubicon. Crossing that river with an army was a direct declaration of war on Rome itself. Caesar won the civil war that followed and made himself dictator of Rome. Now Caesar held almost total power over the entire Roman world. To many senators, he looked exactly like the kings they had sworn to destroy. So a group of them decided that Caesar simply had to die. On the 15th of March, 44 BC, they surrounded him inside the Senate. They pulled out hidden daggers and stabbed him 23 times. As he fell, Caesar saw his own trusted friend Brutus among the killers. It was the ultimate betrayal. But killing Caesar did not save the Republic at all. His loyal general Mark Antony and his young heir Octavian hunted the assassins down. Rome was plunged into yet another 13 years of vicious civil war, and when the dust finally settled, the age of the Republic was over forever. Out of all of that chaos rose Caesar's young adopted heir, Octavian. He defeated every last rival, including Mark Antony and Cleopatra. In 27 BC, he took the grand new name Augustus and became Rome's first emperor. The Roman Republic was gone. The Roman Empire had officially begun. Cleverly, Augustus was always careful never to call himself a king. Yet, he held absolute power over roughly 45 million people. And he gave Rome something it had not truly known in generations: peace. This Roman peace, the Pax Romana, would last around 200 years. Augustus famously boasted that he found Rome in brick and left it in marble. When he finally died, the Romans honored him as a living god. Over the next century, the empire swelled to its absolute peak. Under the warrior emperor Trajan, it reached its greatest size in all of history. It stretched from the rainy Britain all the way to the deserts of the Persian Gulf. Around 60 million people lived their whole lives under Roman rule. Roman engineers laid down an incredible network of paved roads across the empire. They raised towering aqueducts that carried fresh water for hundreds of kilometers. In the heart of the capital, they just built the magnificent Colosseum. There, gladiators fought each other and wild beasts to the death. 50,000 roaring spectators watched the bloodshed purely for entertainment. In 79 AD, the volcano Vesuvius buried the entire city of Pompeii in ash. Eventually, almost every free person in the empire was made a Roman citizen. For a while, it truly seemed as if Rome would simply last forever, but no empire escapes decline, and Rome was no exception. In the 3rd century, the whole empire was nearly fell completely apart. The army began making and murdering emperors almost at will. In just 50 years, Rome burned through around 26 different emperors. Plague, invasion, and rebellion battered the empire from every direction at once. The silver coins were debased again and again until the money was nearly worthless. Prices spiraled out of control, and the trade across the empire began to break down. Whole regions even broke away to form their own rival Roman empires. The empire had simply grown too enormous for any one man to rule. So the emperor Diocletian split it clean in two, an eastern half and a western half. Then came one of the single most important emperors in all of history. His name was Constantine the Great. He crushed his rivals and reunited the whole empire under his single command. And then he did something no Roman emperor had ever dared to do before. Constantine embraced Christianity, a religion Rome had spent centuries persecuting. In 313 AD, he made it fully legal to be a Christian anywhere in the empire. He even gathered bishops at Nicaea to define what all Christians would believe. This one decision would eventually reshape the entire Western world. Constantine also founded a dazzling new capital far away in the east. He named it Constantinople, the city of Constantine. That city would go on to outlive old Rome itself by 1,000 years. But in the west, the empire was now crumbling frighteningly fast. The exhausted borders could no longer hold back the tribes pressing against them. Goths, Vandals, and Huns came pouring across the frontier. The most terrifying of them all was Attila, the ferocious king of the Huns. In 410 AD, the truly unthinkable happened. The city of Rome itself was sacked for the first time in 800 years. The greatest city in the world had been plundered and humiliated. The Western emperors after this were weak puppets with almost no real power. Finally, in 476 AD, a barbarian king simply deposed the last Western emperor. He was just a teenage boy, ironically named Romulus, like Rome's own founder. And with that, the Western Roman Empire came to its quiet end. And yet, incredibly, this was still not the end of Rome. Because in the east, the Roman Empire lived on, and even thrived. The Eastern Roman Empire, which we now call Byzantium, survived for centuries. Its capital, Constantinople, remained the richest and grandest city on earth. Under the Emperor Justinian, it even reconquered some of the lost Roman lands. Its people still call themselves Romans, though they spoke Greek and worshipped as Christians. Its soldiers even wielded a mysterious, terrifying weapon called Greek fire. For centuries, Constantinople's massive triple walls made it almost impossible to conquer. This Eastern Empire held on for nearly another 1,000 years, but slowly it was worn down until in 1453 the Great Walls were finally breached. After more than 2,000 years, the very last echo of Rome fell silent. And still, somehow, Rome never really disappeared at all. It survives all around you, quietly, every single day. Our laws, our calendars, our alphabet all descend directly from Rome. Half the world still speaks languages that grew out of Latin. Even the words Tsar and Kaiser come straight from the name Caesar. Roman roads, arches, and ideas still shape our cities and our government. From a tiny village on the Tiber to a 2,000-year emperor that built the modern world, that was the entire history of Rome. Which era would you most have wanted to live in? Tell me down in the comments. And subscribe, because next we will reveal how Rome actually built all of this.